There's a why to everything. So why? Hi and welcome. If you're new here, welcome. I hope we can earn your subscription today. I've gone through two of my electronic / computer entries into my technical timeline. However, my timeline is heavily driven by my professional life. So I thought maybe I would kind of add those in as we go along. So this one's just going to bring us up to our Coleco Adam era. When I got out of high school, there were family issues that did not allow me to get a student loan. So I went to community college for an associate's degree in electrical engineering and started out working just a job to be able to earn some money. And so I had worked at a convenience store, running a gas pump. That went along until I got robbed, and the management didn't feel like I responded properly to the robbery, and the person had a gun. And then I was probably for a good while working in direct mailing, worked for a printing company. They printed catalogs like Macy's catalog, as an example. Then they would mail those. My job was they would take these catalogs, the ladies would sort them as they would get labels printed on them on a machine, and they would get sorted by zip codes. And these catalogs would have to be put into bags, and then the bags thrown into these, what were called BMC, bulk mail carriers. Those bags, I think they could get up to 25 pounds. They were quite heavy, but I had to tie them up and throw them into the bulk mail carrier all day long. That was my job. One day I was sitting at my grandmother's, and an insurance person came by to talk to her, and we just got to talking about football for some reason. And I mentioned to the guy, yeah, I'd really like to coach. And he said, well, I got a friend who coaches here in the local area. Would you like to talk with him? So I met with Jim and Jim Webb, and he said, yeah, I'd like to have someone run my defense. So this was youth football. So I jumped on with him and started coaching football. Through that, Jim was a part owner in an electric motor repair shop. Jim's job was winding electric motors. That's what he did. So he asked me what I liked. They needed to hire somebody. There were two of them, and they wanted to hire somebody. They needed somebody to do the tear downs and the dirty work. But when I'd finished the dirty work, he taught me how to wind. The trip was a long trip from where I was living at the time. It was an electric motor repair shop, a big one, not too far from where I lived. So we ended up working out to where I went to work for that company, and then part-time with Jim and Chuck. And then Jim and Chuck had a divorce of business, and things were kind of, when I went to work for Jones Electric, that was a pretty interesting interview to get the job. And I kind of got my first entry into sales. They wanted me to run a route, do route stuff. And then whenever I would finish the routes, meaning going out to different plants and either delivering motors or picking up motors, asking for business, I would come back and wind. So I did that for several years, started calling on new clients to get more, business in. And then the guy who hired me managing the electric motor shop, he recommended that I do the job. And so I started managing the motor repair division of this company. And I got an interest in controls because I wanted to rebuild one of our motor test centers. So I bought a bunch of the components to do that. And then I thought, well, I'd like to learn more about electronics. So I took a correspondence course to get an associate's degree in electronic engineering. Through all this, after many years, I was on a project and met Ray Wagner, who owned Integ. We were working on one of his projects. And through that interaction, he offered me a job, which I ultimately accepted. And now this jump was what they focused on, what his company focused on was power quality. So that lasted a year. I learned a lot. Their business just wasn't going very well. So they started laying off some people, and ultimately I got laid off. Now I've learned a lot about controls. I ended up learning a lot, and I thought, man, that's what I want to do. So I spent just right about a year, maybe a little longer, and at Integ, doing a lot of control stuff. And because of that, during that time, the engineering manager requested that we take an industrial controls class. He wanted one. So we took it. And I did very well with it, 100%. I was actually teaching some of the other people in the class. And then at the end of that class, the instructor suggested that I come back and take the advanced class, his advanced controls class, which covered programmable logic controllers, etc. So now I'm in the transition to another job. I went to work for an automation company, or really, I should say a system integrator. They sold automation equipment, but they also packaged it together. That was electric service and sales. And because of the class that I took at Central Piedmont for industrial controls, I did follow my instructor's suggestion, and I took the advanced class. So I was learning about programmable logic controllers, more about them. I already knew about them. I was learning about them and other auxiliary equipment while working for electric service and sales. And my next computer purchase was triggered, or a response to all of this. Okay, that was short. It's actually about a quarter of what the original was. As I went back through editing, I'm like, man, I don't need to be saying all this in this video. It's going to bore people. I'm going to put that stuff in other videos. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe a few things triggered something. If it did, comment. Let me know. Is there something more along those lines you'd like to hear about? I do plan on talking more about specific jobs, I think, in some other video. So if you did, give it a thumbs up, share it, as always, again, comment, and most important, thanks for watching.